하나, 둘, 셋. Hey guys! I'm sitting here because look, I got a new light. Also, it's so gloomy and it's downpouring outside. Hopefully you can't hear it. Welcome to today's video. If you guys have watched my last videos, then you know that I've low-key been on a little bit of like a cleanse. There's like a theme of posts on Substacks that I follow that I really love, which is like what I've read instead of doom scrolling. You get to hear someone's honest opinions about it, and I really want to do something like that, so that's what this video is gonna be. So I'm gonna be talking about 4 of the books that I've read recently. We're actually gonna have to start off with a book that I ended up DNFing, which is probably not the best start. I read around half of it and I vlogged it. I was anticipating this book to be like a 5-star read. Good morning, everyone. I'm kind of late to the bandwagon, but I know that it was popular among fantasy readers I saw on BookTok. And I'm talking about like fantasy, not romantasy. Like I'm talking about like readers who Brandon Sanderson is their favorite author. So right now I'm reading The Will of the Many by James Islington. I know that the second book just came out and everyone loves it. I've been slow reading this for a while now. I don't even know what percent I'm at. Okay, I'm at 31%. I am doing the thing though where I get rid of the percentage tracker at the bottom because I don't want to know. That's none of my business, matter of fact. You can probably tell by the cover of the book, the vibes of it, like the setting feels like ancient Greece. This takes place in a world where there's a hierarchy. So there's 8 rankings in this world called Catanan. At the very bottom is Octavus, and then Septimus, Sextus, Quintus, Quartus, Tertius, Dimidius, and then at the very top is Princeps. Everyone has will that they can cede, as in they give up their will to someone to a higher rank. If you are receiving will from people, it just makes you like stronger, like physically stronger, and it allows you to do some like magical capabilities like levitating things, but it's never actually super clear or said outright how exactly the process is of ceding will and receiving will. That's just how the world building goes in this book, I've noticed. Our main character is a boy named Viz. He's, I guess, like a war orphan, and I don't think this is a huge spoiler, but like you find out very early on in this book that he's the prince of one of the nations that was conquered by Catanan, and his whole family was killed, and he has been living in hiding in an orphanage this entire time. I think he's like 17 or so when he's picked out of obscurity from a very high-ranking senate. The senate wants him to be like a spy and infiltrate Catanan Academy. I haven't really locked in and been able to read this book because it's been a bit slow going in a way where we're at 31%, like a third of the way through this book. We're not school hasn't started yet. It's not back to school season yet. I've been waiting this entire time for him to get to this goddamn school. The reason for that though is because we're having a lot of like build-up. Like why is it that they want him to spy? There's corruption in the government. Also like an underground resistance. They're trying to recruit him. This resistance movement is in a way very radical. They just really make a point of showing you 2 conflicting ideologies. Viz really feels like even if they're part of this empire, if they're innocent, you shouldn't hurt them, versus even if they aren't doing anything, they're complicit in this whole system, which makes them the enemy. Pretty heavy-handed with it, I'm not gonna lie. I will say I'm not like super attached to Viz's character. Not that there's like anything overtly bad. I don't completely understand why he was seen to be so exceptional, besides being maybe more well-educated than you would expect war orphan to be. That and just the fact that he refuses to like participate in ceding will and receiving will. Both of those things are because of his like royal upbringing. It's like, oh, that's just because of the privileges of being a prince. Other than that though, I feel like there's not really like character strengths that make him exceptional, like someone to root for. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading this. I want to get to this goddamn academy so bad. I signed up for school. Give me school. I want cookie. Give me cookie. You guys, look how pretty that is. Unfortunately, I have entered one like and I'll DNF territory with this book. I'm exactly 50% of the way through this book. I have a theory that the people who love this book are world-driven or like theme-driven readers. I am not. I'm not one. Character-driven or bust. If I don't care about the people in this book, or if I don't care about the relationships in this book, cut the camera. When I was reading this last night, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it like 1 more chapter and then I'm gonna decide if I want to DNF it. And I did read the 1 more chapter. That's when like something was revealed. I don't think that's enough for me to like keep reading. While I'm reading this book, 2 side characters really took my breath away. One is a boy that he meets when he first gets into the academy. He's kind of like the nerdy boy. Well, everyone at the school is a nepo baby, but he's like kind of a nepo baby that people don't like his dad. Kind of an anti-nepo baby now. And then the second character is a boy who I thought was gonna be a throwaway, like kind of antagonistic character, like a bully character. But then we like kind of got a hint about his like backstory, and I was like, oh, why is that like so much more complex and like intriguing to me than the main character bit? There is a subplot of romance in here. I'm like pretty sure that's being introduced with another girl. But again, like I don't care about it. Like I think that the big theme here is that it's really hard for me to care about a lot of these characters because they're pretty much all nepo babies. Like they just come from privilege and they're gonna continue on in privilege. I don't care about any of these people. Like these people, like they would call me a racial slur. I feel like theory is that the main wow factor of this book is like is uncovering the conspiracy, because it's very suspicious. Everyone is very, very suspicious. But from a character point of view, aside from his positioning in this world, like politically, I don't really see a reason why specifically he is the main character in this book. The fact that he's like the hidden prince is probably gonna be very, very politically significant. But other than that, I'm like, he's a temper though. I'll say that. I've only seen good things about this book though, so I wonder what everyone else is seeing that I'm not. So yeah, unfortunately, to this day, I haven't picked it up again. This is the last will and testimony. If anyone would like to try to convince me to read this book, I welcome it. Listen, I don't know. I think this book would have been so much more interesting and compelling if the character had had some kind of internal conflict. We're in his POV, and I wish that through his POV we had seen him like changing interests through going to the academy and learning more about Will and meeting the people there. He's completely against the hierarchy at the beginning. As the book goes on, he just more and more strongly feels against the hierarchy, and there's nothing more deeper than that. I really didn't see how we were gonna get to like a point A to point B. It was just like point A and then like deeper into point A. And because of that, I'm like, oh, this could have really just been like a third person omniscient perspective, just telling us the things that happen, and I don't think it would have been any different than having it be first person. I actually think that if it was an outside narrator, it might have actually made the book more interesting, because then maybe you wouldn't know the full story about why he's so against the hierarchy, and then that can be something that we peel back and discover as the book goes on. But again, let me know your thoughts. That was just the next book that I read. I read a graphic novel. I never read graphic novels, but this is because it's one of my favorite books ever that was turned into a graphic novel. Ta-da! Isn't she so pretty? Sorry, the glare is probably horrible. This is so exciting. I've literally wait, it looks so good. Probably one of my most reread books. I'll take no criticism about it. This is one of those books where like it imprinted on you when you're like 14, and then every time you read it, you become a 14-year-old again. I'm just gonna do some enrichment time. Probably blast through this book because it's a graphic novel, and also I've read it probably 8 times, like the actual book. And then I'll figure out what to do about the next book that I want to read. This close to taking a nap right now. I did finish the Raven Boys graphic novel. That was the best 15 minutes of my life. I feel like I really understood the assignment about looking at like the fan art. They really took that personally and ran with it, because every single boy was exactly what I imagined. I feel like Adam was the only one who like his hair just looked lighter than I thought it was gonna be. If you don't know what this book series is about, by the way, it's like a YA kind of urban fantasy. We follow a main character. Her name is Blue, and she's the daughter to a family of psychics. This group of Raven Boys are called Raven Boys because they go to this like private school that rich people go to. The leader of this group is a boy named Gansey. He's been on a mission to find these sleeping Welsh kings. There's this legend that they're not actually dead, they're just like asleep on something called ley lines, which are like energy lines that can intersect. And he's been obsessed with finding one of them named Glendower, and we don't know the reason, and we figure out the reason. All of my most like iconic favorite scenes like illustrate. I'm like, that is exactly the way that it looked like in my head. It was so satisfying. I just wish that it was long. I wonder if they're gonna make the other books in the series. I really hope that they do. Despite what I said at the beginning of this video, I truly have nothing deeper to say about this book other than the fact that it was purely fan service, and thank you Maggie Stiefvater and publishing. Okay, the next book that I read, I picked up the Jasad Heir. Don't kill me. I don't even know how far I am in it. Oh, I'm at 52%. I'm more than halfway through this book now. I started it last night. I stayed up late. I haven't been this like locked in a hot minute, and it's a romantasy, which is surprising because I'm not huge into romantasy. The Jasad Heir by Sarah Hashem. I was eating this book up last night. I was reading it on my bed just now. I'm gonna continue to read it, but I kind of think that the ambiance of me reading it late at night added to the experience of reading this, because I feel like it's low-key not hitting the same reading it in broad daylight. I like put the blinds on my windows. Oh my god, I was like literally in a fever dream last night reading this. This one is an Egyptian inspired fantasy world. There's a couple of kingdoms, and one of them is called Jasad. This is a kingdom that was completely defeated by another kingdom named Nizal. In this world currently there is a literal genocide happening for anyone who is Jasadi. It's literally pretty much a witch hunt. Anyone who anyone suspects of being like a Jasadi in hiding is just executed, and it's all on the basis of magic, because the Jasad people were the only ones who had this magic. And so our main character is a girl named Sylvia, the secret heir to, she's the Jasad, but she's been hiding out in this kingdom, in this random village, ever since she was 15, and she's just been kind of living in this keep with like other orphans. She does have powerful magic, except it's contained, like she can't use her magic because of these magical cuffs that were put on her as a child, and then no one was ever able to take them off. Our other main character in this book is the Nizal Heir. He is known for being like super brutal. His father's like the supreme, and they're the ones who are like behind this entire genocide. And legend has it that he can detect Jasad and like magic just by touching someone. They end up crossing paths. It's like a little bit of like a dance about him suspecting that she has magic, but then like not being able to confirm it. He ends up naming her as his champion for this competition that's being held. The champion competes in like these trials where you could die, but if you win, then she will have her freedom in exchange for her being bait for these two secret Jasad Jasadi rebellion group that the prince Aaron is trying to hunt down, but he doesn't know that she's the heir. He just knows that she's probably someone important and that she is a secret Jasadi. We're 50% of the way through. The trials haven't started. Honestly, that's fine for me because I didn't even know that these trials were gonna happen. I kind of was eating up the era that we were in, which is like the training era, because her and Aaron would have like interactions together. It's like actually a true enemies to lovers. Like this man breaks both of her wrists, stabs her in the thigh, stabs her through the arm, pins her to a tree. He's very like stoic and exercises a lot of restraint. So that makes like every single thing that he does do or anything that he does emote a million times crazier. If we're seeing this kind of reaction out of him, the actual feeling must be like 10 billion times what it actually looks like. I just like the fact that it's not cringy, like so much romantic. People love like a banter between the two main characters, but I don't know why. I kind of find that really cringy. That what I like about this book, and I feel like The Will of the Many was kind of like missing this. Not to compare books are allowed to just stand on their own. I think that what makes Sylvia more of a compelling character is because she like has internal conflict on like how strongly she believes that she has like a responsibility to the Jasadi people, like because she is the heir and she is Jasadi, but she doesn't live there. She escaped from there. She kind of doesn't want this responsibility of being the only person who can challenge the current reigning empire. But then I feel like over the course of this book, you see her like reconnecting to her Jasadi identity, learning what it means to be a ruler, really thinking like what does she owe to herself and what does she owe to her people. There's a character in this book who I love so much and I'm gonna be so sad if something bad ends up happening to him. And I feel like he says like the important line in this book: a true ruler is one who puts their people before themselves no matter the cost. That isn't me, it is not in my nature. Of course it isn't. Altruism is no one's nature. It wouldn't be half as remarkable otherwise. That line, altruism is a choice, not just something you have to be born with. Like anyone can decide to do it and it's gonna be hard, and that's the whole point. I feel like that's pretty much at the crux of what she is having conflict about, whether or not she's willing to sacrifice. I need to be so for real. I'm balancing you on my Brita. I'm 73% of the way through. I just want to say that this is actually how an enemies to lovers should be done. This is my PSA. No more enemies to lovers who were basically lovers from the beginning. Sorry, being attracted to them straight from the beginning. Like literally first meeting. None of that. Stop the violence. I need a true enemies to lovers because in the first 50% of this book, there was pretty much no mention of anyone's attractiveness. It was kind of just the physical description of what this man looked like and how scary he was. Because he is scary. He's literally the oppressor. In fantasy book setups like this, where it is pretty much the oppressed and an oppressor, I'm very skeptical about how this is gonna pan out because what's the message of that story? Like there better be, he has some explaining to do. But I like that it wasn't like that. Like genuinely at the beginning of this book, he appears a lot less, but every time that he would make an appearance in this book, I was scared for her. I was like, girl, you need to get out. He was a terror. And what's changed from then till now is this slow transition that makes logical sense between her being scared of him to deciding that, okay, actually, matter of fact, there are ops everywhere. And kind of right now in our plan together is the only one that I can actually trust. She knows that he needs her. He's not gonna kill her. He's not gonna risk her getting killed. It would foil his plans. Only now, 3/4 of the way of the book, do you like sense some actual like tension. Like, after they spend all this time together and they've like proven to have each other's trust, I can really see the redemption happening. Like I said, anytime there's like a conquering happening, I'm just like, okay, like if someone is like committing a mass genocide, how are we ever supposed to root for that man? Like what? But the more that you learn about this story, the more that you actually find out Jasadi's are the only ones who have magic, and they're all scared of something called magic madness because there's a legend of that having had happened. And that almost destroyed all these kingdoms. That's why they're trying to extinguish magic. It's not because they're like, yeah, they're just inferior, low-life people compared to the rest of us. Like, it's nothing like that. Also, we're this far into the book and we've only just finished the first trial. I actually couldn't care less about these trials. I'm not even gonna lie. It's kind of just a plot device. I just finished this book, The Jasad Heir. Oh my god. I actually already got the second book to this. Enemies to Lovers is so back. That's all I have to say about that. I'll say the trials in this book, did they have to be there? Probably not. I think it's just kind of something to like give some structure. That's just me being kind of nitpicky. Personally, I didn't like the trial scenes that much because there would be no interaction between her and Aaron during these trials. I already know that we're about to enter the craziest enemies to lovers to enemies to lovers. This is just a duology, I'm pretty sure too. Ooh, that's about to eat. The sequel, I saw it has a 4.5 average rating on Goodreads. These days I've gotten really into the habit of reading the acknowledgement or like author's note at the end of books. This one has one of them, but it also has like an interview with the author. This is her debut, which is crazy. Good for her. Women in the art. I like what she said about this book of like, where the Jasad heir wanted to know, what do you owe to a place and a people you've barely known but without whom you couldn't exist or wouldn't exist? Children of immigrants or kind of anyone part of like some diaspora. You guys know the vibes because I always felt like like I belong somewhere because there's like a community of people who are just like me. But when I do go out to Korea, when I think about Korea, I always think about like, oh, like how much of this place feels like home and how much of this place's history feels like my history, and how much do I owe a country that I have never really meaningfully lived in, even though I was born there. All of my family, except for my immediate family, is there, who I have never met pretty much. There's a sentence that I highlighted: who we are is where we come from. And I feel like that's the biggest change that we see in this character, of her coming to that realization. And I feel like that's the realization that the author would want the reader to come to also. You can't separate your current circumstances and who you are from like a past version of yourself, even if that version of yourself you feel like is completely extinguished and like severed from your life. Cue the severance music. One couldn't exist without the other, and you have to accept every version of you from every place that you've come from, even the parts that are shameful. You can't really just bury it and then like abandon it and be like, yep, never mind. Anyway, the next book is called The Jasad Crown, and I'm gonna start it right now. So I did end up finishing this duology. I didn't realize how thick the books were because I read it on my Kindle, but I was like, oh damn, this is big boy. I need a big boy. Also, I take back what I said about the trial adding nothing to the story. I was lying. It did add something to the story. It added one thing. Each trial occurred in a different kingdom, so it was pretty much just an excuse for us to go into every kingdom. We were able to see how each kingdom was like culturally unique and how they were governed differently and how that also impacts the culture. But I do think that it was just kind of a simple solution to what otherwise would have required the author to come up with like a more complex plot that would inherently bring us throughout the kingdoms in like a more organic way. I loved Aaron in this book. Honestly, for me, he was probably the strongest character. I mean, I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but he's very like a perfectionist, like the kind where you like kind of want to like make them break. A man where like if you go to his room, everything is really, really neat and tidy and all his clothes are folded and like kind of like that's kind of hot. The main characters were separated in book 2 for the most part, which is not an original thing to happen. I feel like that happens a lot in sequels. But if you're gonna do that in book 2, I feel like each separate storyline has to be able to hold on its own. I personally don't think that it really did, because I don't think there was like enough of a foundation in like the world building in book 1 to like set that up for book 2. For example, 2 of the side characters from book 1, Sefa and Merrick, they each now get their own point of view chapters in book 2. And I wish that the author had just full sent them as like secondary main characters in book 1 and just given them their own plot line in book 1. And I just feel like it was a lost opportunity to just make like a equally as complex plot line for those 2, because I really, really loved them. I think they were like probably one of my favorite parts of book 1. This might be a controversial opinion, but I feel like maturing as a reader is realizing that when a character doesn't feel vivid, it's because they're not distinct. In book 1, they set her up as a character from the very beginning, really, really stoic and like emotionally repressed. And the author in the author interview said that the reason is because Sylvia is supposed to like emulate the eldest daughter of an immigrant family. I'm the youngest in an immigrant family, but I get the vibe. But I don't think it persisted anything past the introduction. This most distinct character trait of hers was dropped, and then she just kind of became as generic, like headstrong, emotional outbursts. Okay, I'm not in the publishing industry, so I don't know if this is like completely true, but sometimes I have this conspiracy that authors get pressure from the publishing house or like the editors to like water down their female main characters, specifically female, so that they can be generic enough that the female readership can like self-identify in some respect. The side characters or the male love interest get like these more unique character traits. Like in Aaron, you can really tell in the details that he is this like perfectionist, neurotic person. You see him folding Sylvia's clothes on the bed that she had just like laid out. Merrick is like a huge womanizer. That stays really consistent. Sefa is like overly emotional, empathizes a little bit too much for people. She's really, really, really soft, and that stays really distinct. I will now take this moment to recite some of the greatest angsties. Don't be fooled by what I just said, because I was really kicking my feet like a little schoolgirl. He was the single most beautiful thing I had ever laid hands upon, and I was not good at treating the beautiful things in my life gently. Maybe they knew Aaron's love, like everything else about him, was made to frighten. Maybe they understood that if it found him and he lost it, what would have been left of Aaron would not be worth salvaging. You don't warn an injured horse before you swing the axe. Maybe that was why nobody warned Aaron what he might face if love ever found him. What? Aaron would love to obsession, to madness. But do you want to know the real reason he would never allow himself to love another? Aaron is consumed by what he loves. If asked, he would get on his knees and let it kill him. He withholds his heart out of self-preservation. Being with him would be honeyed annihilation, too much for a flesh and bone body to bear. It didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like wandering through the woods for an endless night and finally stumbling into the dawn. Oh my god, I'm gonna throw up. I stroked the length of his face, the rhapsodies of poets and lovelorn melodies. I understood them now. Anyway, a dub is a dub. Anyway, that's gonna be all for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna go out into the rain. I'm so excited. It's still downpouring. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. You can follow me on my socials. They're all linked in the description. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye!